There are a few court cases I want to talk about here that have significantly altered how we think about redistricting. I won't go into too much detail about the specific facts of the cases here, but you should know the major takeaway from each of them for the exam and for life. The first case is Baker v. Carr, taking place in 1962. The case itself is relatively unremarkable, but the decision was a landmark one because it decided that redistricting was a legal issue rather than a political one, meaning that the courts could become involved in it. Up until this point, the Supreme Court had argued that redistricting was not justiciable, declaring that they wouldn't get involved in the political thicket of redistricting. Such a great phrase, the political thicket of redistricting. But this opened up a whole line of cases that established the legal rights of the people surrounding redistricting. The next case I want to mention was Westbury v. Sanders from 1964. This case established the requirement of equipopulation in districts. What was going on back in the 1960s and before was that states rarely drew new district lines, and often districts were divided by land area rather than population. What this meant was that sparsely populated rural districts had far fewer people in them than more densely populated urban districts. What this means is that the vote of someone in a rural district was effectively worth more than someone in an urban district. The courts decided that one man, one vote was a legal right, and that districts would have to be redrawn to account for population rather than geographic area. The next case was Davis v. Bandemer in 1986. This case handled the legality of political redistricting, or gerrymandering, as it is more popularly known. The courts explicitly stated in this case that political gerrymandering is allowed, and the right to effective representation doesn't extend to things like partisan affiliation. Basically, the parties can do whatever they want with respect to partisan redistricting, and that incumbent protection is a valid redistricting principle. However, in the same year, the courts dealt with racial redistricting in the case of Thornburg v. Gingles. In this case, the courts decided that minority representation was a sufficiently important principle that redistricting should encourage it as much as possible. Specifically, the case decided that states would be required to create majority-minority districts if the majority of the population is an ethnic minority when three conditions are met. Number one, there's enough of a population to create a majority-minority district, and that population is concentrated in an area, making it possible to create such a district. So number one, are there enough people of a certain minority to create this district? Do you have a majority? Can you have 400 and something thousand people you can put in one district? Number two, does this minority population vote in a cohesive manner? Do people of this ethnic group vote together for one candidate? Number three, does the white majority consistently vote against the minority's preferred candidate? And we've seen that over 99% of all congressional races in white majority districts elect a white member of Congress. Let me repeat that. We see that over 99% of all congressional races in a white majority district elect a white member of Congress. So clearly the majority is cohesive against the minority's candidate. The idea here is that we need to work harder to allow minorities to gain descriptive representation in Congress. So if we can use institutions and congressional districts to do this, we should.